Okay, this is urinary system recorded lecture part 1. The urinary system consists of the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra, which we can't really see. Function of the urinary system is, well, its main function is to remove waste from the blood and regulate what's in the blood. But it also regulates red blood cell production. Remember from the endocrine system, we talked about the kidney's role in releasing or secreting erythropoietin, and also helps to functions in blood pressure regulation. The kidneys are in this retroperitoneal cavity. So here's the parietal peritoneum, separating those abdominal contents. And the retroperitoneal cavity is behind the peritoneum. Generally, the left kidney is a little more superior than the right. All right, structure of the kidney. The kidney has a lateral surface that's convex and a medial concave surface. So the kidney is actually kidney-shaped, which is ironic. Not really. The concave portion, the medial concave portion, this space is called the renal sinus. And it's just the space formed from it. There's an opening in the sinus called the opening in the sinus is called the hilum. Hilum is H-I-L-U-M. Good. There are two main parts or areas of the kidney. There's the cortex, and the cortex is the outer portion. So this is the cortex here. I should change my pen color. That's not really much better. And then there's the medulla, which is the inner portion. The whole kidney is surrounded by the renal capsule, which is there to keep the shape of the kidney and protect it. So let's start with the medulla. The medulla has these pyramids. So this is a pyramid. And then the cortex, which is surrounding the pyramids, also dives down into the pyramids between them here to form these renal columns. So the renal columns are part of the cortex. And they kind of just take up that space between the pyramids. The ureter, which we're going to kind of work backwards from this, but the ureters are where the urine flows into the bladder. Working up, the ureter actually expands to fill part of the space, and that's the renal pelvis, is the expansion right there of the ureter inside the sinus. The renal pelvis, that expansion of the ureter, divides into two to three major calyces. Calyces is a plural of calyx. It's C-A-L C-Y. Oops. C-A-L-Y-E-S. That's calyces. So you get 2 to 3 major calyces formed that flow into the ureter. Each major calyx, or each major calyx, I should say, has 7 to 20 minor calyces. And then the minor calyces have 1 to 3 renal papilla. And the renal papilla are really just the ends of these pyramids. So right in this area, the renal papilla are just the ends of the pyramids. And then we'll talk from there about the nephrons. So the nephron is the functional unit of the kidney. So this is a nephron. Okay, it's got the renal corpuscle and the renal tubule as its two pieces. This is really how the urine is formed in there. Most of the nephrons are called cortical nephrons, like 80% of them. And then the rest of them are juxtamedullary nephrons. All right, so you got this. The renal blood vessels. The renal artery comes off of the abdominal arteries. So these renal arteries are directly coming off the abdominal arteries. About 30% of the blood of a person who's just at rest, not doing anything, goes to the kidneys. So that shows you how important those kidneys are in maintaining that balance of water. So the renal artery flows into an interlobar artery. So right here, the interlobar arteries. And those go between the pyramids. So those are going to go up between the pyramids. Where the cortex and the medulla meet, you get the renal or the interlobar artery forms the arcuate artery. Which, okay, right in here, arcuate arteries. And then they branch to form the interlobular arteries. And now we've got to go up here. Here are the interlobular arteries. These interlobular arteries form into the afferent arterioles. So the afferent arterioles are actually going to go into this glomerulus. Okay, and then following it back out, you just reverse it for the veins. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just so you can see that we have all this written down. So renal artery, interlobar artery, arcuate artery, interlobular artery, afferent arteriole to the glomerular capillary. And then everything just kind of reverses back out. Okay. Glomerular capsule is part of that nephron and the nephron is made up of this renal corpuscle and the renal tubule. So this is the first part of that tubule, and this is the renal corpuscle. The corpuscle is made of the glomerulus, which the glomerulus is just a bunch of capillaries, so a cluster of capillaries, and the Bowman's capsule, which is also called the glomerular capsule. Both of those are thin-walled to allow material to pass out of them, or pass out of the glomerulus, out of these capillaries, into the Bowman's capsule, or glomerular capsule. The glomerular capsule is 2 layers thick, though. The outer layer is squamous, and then the inner layer have those podocytes we've talked about before that kind of help form those slit pores for filtration. Okay, so let's talk about the nephron. So this is a nephron, and it's, like we said before, it's the functional unit of the kidney. Each kidney has about 1 million nephrons. The glomerulus is where we're going to start. Because as the blood comes in from this interlobular artery into the afferent arteriole, and it moves into the glomerulus, it's going to get filtered out. Like material is going to get filtered out of here. And it's really under a lot of pressure here to push material out. The blood then continues as a capillary, around the entire nephron. So you can see it networks around, it continues to move around the entire nephron. Then let's talk about the capsule, or the actual tubule now. So once the material is filtered out, it's in kind of this tube, and it will move through the tubule. The parts of the tubule are the proximal convoluted tubule. So convoluted means like really twisted. So this is the proximal convoluted tubule. That moves into the nephron loop. The nephron loop is also called the loop of Henle. There's a descending portion, and then there's the ascending portion. After the loop of Henle, or the nephron loop, you have the distal convoluted tubule, which is much shorter and less convoluted. And then the filtrate, which at this point is the urine mostly, is going to move into a collecting duct. So a lot of nephrons will feed into the same collecting duct. Notice that the nephron loop is in the medulla, and the cortex has the rest of it. All right, juxta glomerular apparatus. So where the ascending loop of Henle comes up and the afferent and efferent arterioles meet, you get this juxtaglomerular apparatus. And this helps to regulate renin secretion. We talked about renin in the endocrine system, but this is more specific. There's two kinds of cells in the juxtaglomerular apparatus. There are macula densa cells, which are basically right here, macula densa cells, and those are really tightly packed together epithelial cells of the ascending limb, and the juxtaglomerular cells are smooth muscle cells. So these are the juxtaglomerular cells in here. Okay, blood supply of the nephron. So you get this capillary loop is called the vasa recta, or vasa recta, and it's very closely associated with these nephron loops and the juxtamedullary nephrons. So it runs all alongside it, and this is going to help concentrate the urine and pull in material or secrete material. So here's that blood flow we've already talked about. Okay. So we're going to stop here and for the end of part 1.